Well, thank you guys so much for introducing yourselves and sharing. Today's going to be an interesting presentation because it's going to be really a slant on calm. And I thought it was cool that we noticed that it is also about resiliency. Resiliency is very important. So this presentation is going to be about calm, but it's going to have a focus on resiliency. One note that I'll leave just for you guys to think about by the end of the presentation is by the end of this presentation, you will know for a fact why going to the bathroom can actually benefit your relationships. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So I was going to throw you a curveball there. Let's get into it. So finding your calm, building resilience in a changing world. So in a fast-moving world, it is easy to feel overwhelmed, disconnected, or constantly on. This conversation invites us to slow down, notice what we are carrying, and explore how calm can be built through awareness, compassion, and practical daily habits. So when I say awareness and compassion for ourselves, have we all noticed that sometimes we are aware of what everyone else is doing, what everyone else in the world is up to, what everyone else is saying? Or we might be compassionate for others. We see someone's going through something and we say words of affirmation, we're kind, but we might be going through a similar thing and we just are results-based within ourselves. Oh, if this doesn't happen, I feel this way, right? But then we encourage others, it's a process, you're going through something. And so when I say, that's why sometimes I talk slow when I'm reading this, is awareness, compassion, and practical daily habits within ourselves. So what we're going to talk about today is slowing things down, noticing ourselves, and working on ourselves. Because in the perfect world, we would have all the right resources around us, right? We would have the perfect partner, the perfect kiddos, the perfect job, and all of these things would support us in our tribe, in our community. However, life doesn't always work that way. Even the people we trust can sometimes hurt us, or we can become hurt by things. And so today we're really going to focus, and I'm not saying, don't trust anyone, don't share, don't seek a connection with others. It's not that at all. But what I'm offering today is an approach of self-regulation, learning how to be better at regulating oneself. It's just one aspect. As I talk today, I certainly don't ask you guys to agree. All I ask for is understanding. Right? I love challenges and think, well, how about this, D? I actually see it this way. That's totally normal and fine. And that's why we're here, is to discuss these things. But the presentation today is based off of the works of Gabor Mate, who I highly, highly encourage everyone here to look this man up and to watch some of his videos. He has quite the presence. He talks about very, very controversial things in a very sensible way. And he's just a spectacular human being who's written some really cool books. He reminds us that many stress responses are not signs of weakness, but adaptive patterns that once helped us cope. I just wanted to recognize, we have a few other men here today. And in our culture amongst men, sometimes it's very difficult because we can be seen as weak for expressing ourselves, right? Or we want to be seen as strong so we can be like the foundation of our family or our friendships. And that can become really difficult. And we're going to touch on that today, is like, what is real calm as opposed to presenting calm, right? So in society, you're presenting calm, but are you really calm? And that's what we're going to explore today, is what I would like to call real calm. Stress responses are not signs of weakness, but adaptive patterns that once helped us cope. So presenting calm could have helped you cope or get through the day or get through an environment because you were afraid of showing weakness, because the weakness might be seen as something that makes you, in the workplace, for example, if you express something, so now people are chattering about you or what have you. And so we're going to go down and understand how can we do this in a more effective way, regulate ourselves. And so with awareness and support, we can begin moving from survival mode toward greater calm, steadiness, and resilience. And focus on that word support for one moment. When I hear the word support, I usually think of like being supported, right? So we think of other people or institutions that are helping us. And that's certainly true. But could we agree that support could also mean the effort that we are putting into ourselves, right? We are creating supports. If you're building your own house, you are creating a foundation, you're creating a strong frame, and you're creating the support for your house to be sustainable for a long time, right? And so often in society, we say, well, I get support through going to therapy, which is great. I get support through my friends. I get support through my family. I get support through institutions. What we're going to talk about today is how to build that support within yourself as well. So all of that stuff has its place, but starting from the inside is really important. So resilience is not pretending everything is fine or suppressing difficult emotions, right? So to me, that's not resilience. That's, for a lack of a better term, counterfeit resilience. We're survival resilience. I need to get through this moment, so I need to project this illusion that I'm okay, and to protect my kids or to protect my friends or to not scare anyone, I'm going to suppress this, and this is my, for lack of a better term, cross to bear. I mean, do we recognize that in life? We see that, our loved ones or ourselves. So healing often begins when we notice our stress patterns honestly. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be genuine. We are building an intimate connection with ourselves. In society, we're generally taught, you're born, you connect to your mother, you connect to your father, you meet your grandparents, you might have siblings, you go to kindergarten, you're connecting to other people. But how often are we taught, particularly early on in our developmental stages, is to connect with ourselves? Your mother usually noticed your stress because you would cry as a baby. I want milk. My dad does a good cry, which is, I want milk. I need this. And so you are taught early on that everyone notices your stress and they react to it. What we're going to talk about is how do you notice your own stress? How do you start to notice your own patterns of behavior and feelings and etc., which is really important. We're basically creating an environment where you put in the work so that way it's not so heavy later when you do have to go to people, right? Responding to ourselves with compassion instead of criticism. You are your own best friend. I often tell people, this person is my best friend, and I'm lying all the time because my best friend is myself. I better get in touch with me. I better be really liking this dude. Because if I don't like this dude, he's going to suffer, right? And so I need to do things that are in congruency with feeling good and not expecting my best friend to do. It's like, oh man, if I didn't have my best friend, I would be miserable. I'd be this. It's like, no, I am my best friend. And then all these other people complement the work that I'm putting into myself. And if I need help, I can go to them because that's just natural and healthy. Learning to regulate rather than to react. This is about regulating ourselves. This isn't about putting ourselves down or hindering ourselves. I know some of you personally. I've met some of you, wonderful human beings. You can see the light shining. And so when I say regulate, I don't mean like, suppression. I mean learning how to find what is your vibe and your health and live within that, right? Whatever you want. Some people are introverts. Some people are extroverts. And there's no way it has to be. What it is how does it work for you? And so how do you regulate within who you are? So I kind of giggle sometimes when I go to like a birthday party and they're, you're so quiet. Get up and sing. They're doing karaoke and there's like the dudes in the corner like, I hate singing. This sucks. He's just trying to be nice. And it's like, well, because that's what he does. He doesn't like to do that. He doesn't care to do karaoke, right? But the extrovert's like, oh, yeah, we're going to do Michael Jackson. Cool, you're regulating within who you are, right? And the other person's like, I just love to observe. There's nachos. I'm going to sit here and eat and drink some Pepsi, and I'm in heaven, right? He's regulating in his heavenly space, right? And so we're going to learn, not only we're learning about ourselves, but about others, right? Regulation isn't some one-off, everyone behaves the same. Diversity is actually very wonderful in that regard. And so we might say someone's a curmudgeon because they don't want to do this. Or we might say someone's an attention seeker because they're going out and being lively. It's neither of the two. They are who they are. And so it's important for them to regulate within themselves and me to regulate within myself, right? So
you're saying you would be the guy in the back sitting.
Oh, I'm at the nachos, yeah, for sure. I'm eating the nachos.
The good thing you didn't go to that concert with me Thursday night because when the band came out, they wanted everybody to come up in front.
Yeah.
And so you went up to him and come with me?
No
'Cause
way.
I was right there in front.
No way. If I had
Okay.
some drinks, maybe. You know, Dustin is a really good friend. He's invited me to a bunch of stuff. And the great thing about that honest friendship is I'm very honest with him. Not only do I tell him I don't feel like going, I say, this is why. And I'm not guilty about it. But we've gone and done a bunch of stuff as well. And so, but that's regulation. So I wouldn't lie to him and be like, Dustin, I'm not going to go because, to make up some lie, right? To being honest within yourself is like, you know what, I just don't feel like going to that. It's not interesting to me. That's cool that you like it. That's awesome. I'm happy for you. But that's you, and this is me, right?
I kind of wish I pushed you more because I think you will like it. I think you really will like it.
Exactly, yeah, and it could. And there are times when we do stretch and try something different that we do enjoy it, right? And so why am I talking about all of this stuff? It's because we need to reconnect with ourselves. We need to reconnect with ourselves and also supportive people that understand who we are, right? Like I just said, the example of the guy sitting quietly and the person doing karaoke. You want to regulate yourself, but you also want to be around people that understand you. It's like, hey, I'm not trying to be mean. These nachos are delicious. I'm just sitting here having a bite. I'm not trying to be mean. I just want to encourage you to sing, and I want to, do karaoke. That's who I am. And that's great. And we understand each other, right? And remember, like we said last time, understanding doesn't mean agreeing. This notion that we have to agree about everything is a fallacy. I mean, that sets you up for failure. Oh, we have to come to consensus. How we wash the dishes, how we do this. No, maybe we just understand each other. We have an understanding. And then that way we say, okay, maybe it's like this, maybe it's like that, right? Because if everything has to be agreeable, you kind of give up yourself to fit in, right? Yeah. And so we want to have our own selves, and we got to make that work. So what I wanted to say, the reason that we need to reconnect with ourselves is I came up with this idea called covert deregulation. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but basically it's deregulation. So what happens is, let's say we're dealing with lots of stress, right? We're not calm, we're not feeling good. So we're just all over the place in our heads, right? We're so deregulated, right? And so what does the average person do when they're deregulated? Does anybody have an idea? Like, what does someone do when they're like, I can't figure this out, or I'm stressed, or I'm this?
Sometimes go to an addiction.
That's a real thing.
Say a looping pattern, but
Yeah, they might behave in that way. They might drink alcohol or drugs or gambling or what have you.
or get angry at other people.
Beg your pardon?
Get angry at other people.
Get angry at other people. So now you're like, yeah, you're the problem, so-and-so. If you were gone, this wouldn't be here, right? That's a real one, right? So communicate with other people, right? So we might project, even if it's intimate, we might say, hey, I'm going through all this stuff and I need you to hear about it, right? And so the question I would have to the normal person is like, well, how much time did you spend dealing with this before you did this, right? How much time did you spend dealing with your emotions before you went to this person, whether it was to blame them or whether it was to just tell them, hey, I got drama, or I got problems, or I got what, you know what I'm saying? And that's the crux of the issue here, is we want to spend more time dealing with this within ourselves. All of the stress, we want to process that. We want to digest that. And I'll use the example. Does anyone here like steak? Yeah, steak's good. Yeah, steak's good. If you don't like steak, there's chicken or vegetables or whatever. Well, if you eat steak, what did they teach you when you were a little kid? The first time your mom gave you steak?
Cut it up in pieces.
Right. Your mom would cut it up in really small pieces. Yeah. Why would she do that?
So you won't choke.
Exactly. You need to chew it and you need to digest it, right? Mm-hmm. And so you would start chewing. In fact, ancient societies, chewing is really important. It strengthens the jawline. It's actually one of the reasons that modern society has so much sleep apnea. It's because we have a lot of soft foods, and therefore we have very weakened structures in our facial features and in our necks. You can see societies in Africa and all over the world that they still eat from the land and from the animals. They have defined jaw lines. They have really straight teeth. But then you see European countries, their teeth are not as straight. Their noses are very narrow, things of that nature. That is evolved from not chewing as much and from eating certain types of foods, right? Why do I bring that up off the cuff? Well, because it's the same thing with our thoughts. It's the same thing with how we experience stress. If we do not chew, if we do not metabolize those issues, we are at risk of choking on it. We're at risk of not understanding it. We're not at risk for growing from it, right? And so the problem becomes that when we're deregulated, when we're not seeking to regulate ourselves first, we often either project that onto the world, meaning maybe another person who's not very happy about that now, or we project that through telling someone and hoping that they fix it. So I'm going to tell you this. That's why I use the word covert, because most of us, we hope. There's a sense of hope. I'm going to tell someone I got a problem, and I hope they have the answer. I hope they have something to bring to the table to make it better. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it might be words of affirmation. It could be something as simple as that, but it could be other things. And this is why I call it covert deregulation, is because we may not know, we might become in the habit of just not even addressing problems within ourselves and not even starting the process of like, hey, what's going on? How can I work through? Which we're going to talk about today. We're going to learn some techniques. And this is really important, not because you shouldn't talk to other people, not because you shouldn't be angry, not because you shouldn't express yourself, but it shouldn't be your always number one first go-to. Your first number one always go-to has to be working with it through yourself, chewing it up, digesting it, and then presenting it to the world through the lens of your personal wisdom and how your own sensibilities, right? So, why is this important? Well, I can explain the whole world in 3 letters. I could explain politics, I can explain someone's household, I can explain a lot of problems, because I'm egotistical and I said that, right? The victim, the perpetrator, I can't spell good, perpetrator, and the hero. And this becomes a complex that exists in a lot of people's lives. Politically, you ever notice how we're going to war with everybody, and then after we beat them, we go to war with the next guy? We're always the victim, or so-and-so's the victim. These people are the perpetrators. And then maybe America has to be the hero and dig them out of the hole. Have you ever noticed how you might have a coworker that they're always the victim of someone else's behavior, and you're the hero for listening to them? Or so-and-so was or maybe they had a bunch of relationships, and it was like, I was really great, the person sucked, and then my good friend got me out of the relationship, right? And that's natural. That happens in life. There's actually instances where that happens. Wars, issues within the family, business deals gone awry. These things happen. But the problem is when it becomes a habituated pattern that we start off with from the jump. When we're not regulating ourselves, when we're not in regulation with ourselves and loving ourselves and connecting to our emotions, we often share that with the world, and we see the world is connected to our problems in a really deep and powerful way. And so we're often generally people, even if they're wrong or if they're, right or wrong, they see themselves more in a victim mentality. I mean, societally, we've talked about that. It's very rare that you'll meet someone and they'll be like, man, I was this perpetrator to this victim, and this hero came along and saved that person from me. And then they go to the next person, it's like, man, I was perpetrating like crazy. And then this victim, found a hero and saved them from me. No, usually when you have a story from someone, it's like, oh, this person was evil, I was the victim, and then a hero came. And that's very valid sometimes. The reason I'm sharing this, and I apologize because I'm trying to be a little bit comedic, because some of this stuff is very serious, is that when you start off as the victim, then there cannot be, generally speaking, other victims. So you will have to find a perp. You'll have to find a perp. So I can't find the remote. My wife took the remote, and she hid it because I was watching too much TV. So I'm going to go to my kid, the hero, and assume that she hid the remote. Hey, your mom's hiding the remote, huh? Yeah, isn't she? You figure it out for dad, find that remote. You create scenarios. It becomes a habituated pattern. And like Mark Twain said, I love this Mark Twain quote. He said, habit is habit. It's not to be flung out the window, but rather coaxed down the stairs one step at a time. And so I want you, as you leave here today, to realize the patterns that you notice about yourself, they're not bad. They're just habits. They're just habits. And you can change them with work. But you have to be intentional. And you have to work towards your own personal regulation, right? So small moments of awareness can create meaningful change over time. And there are, definitely signs you may be carrying stress. And notice I use the word carrying. Because having stress, you can have stress in a moment and then walk away and it's gone. But if you're carrying stress, that stress could be like vintage. Like you could have that stress in like an antique store, right? It's like, man, this stress is worth $1,000 compared to that stress because it's 50-year-old stress, You're feeling emotionally overwhelmed. You're irritable or dealing with frustration, trouble sleeping or relaxing, constant tension in the body, feeling disconnected or numb, overthinking or difficulty concentrating, pulling away from supportive people. So these are all signs of carrying stress. And so what I mentioned, the little note I put in is that we need to be aware of chronically reacting to stress. There's a difference between noticing stress and reacting to stress, right? So like I said, to me, reacting would be like swallowing. And being aware would be like chewing. You want to be very aware of your stress before you swallow the stress, okay? So you want to metabolize the stress. This is going to be about food because I've been overeating lately. I got nachos on the mind, so you'll have a lot of food stuff here today. But this is about, chewing and then swallowing, not swallowing before chewing, because I don't want you to choke. What happens when we just totally take in the stress, swallow it, and we might hold on to it. It might take us a lot longer to process it. So you got to help yourself. That's why we have jaws. That's why we help ourselves chew and we help our stomach digest, right? So if we just didn't have a mouth and teeth, we'd all be having smoothies, and then life wouldn't be so fun. All right. So these reactions are human responses to pressure, stress, and overwhelm. Realize your potential to destabilize yourself. You need to realize your potential to destabilize yourself. It's not to say that you can't be in an abusive relationship and someone's destabilizing you. It's not to say that the world could be harming you, coworkers, financial issues, physical illness. It's not to say that. You can have everything in the same boat. You can have that you are a victim, legitimately and truly, but also realize that you might also be making it worse for yourself as well within that. When I used to work at the domestic violence shelters, my office was an apartment, and I didn't live there, I worked there, but I had a lot of the women that were there because, 90 some odd % of survivors of abuse are women. And, I would see these women that had super, super valid reasons to be super stressed out. In the same boat, I would also see people destabilizing themselves and their children further than what they had experienced, which is why we had psychologists there, why we had programs, why we had help. Because, when you are a victim, it's valid, but if you buy into victimhood so much that you deregulate yourself and you go off the rails, that becomes a problem too, right? And, so realize your potential to destabilize yourself. I highly encourage anyone to start a journal and note like a stress journal. Hey, I noticed that when this happened, I reacted this way. I made it worse. I started thinking all these thoughts. I wanted payback, or I wanted this, or I got mad, or whatever. And so the example that I'll use, I'll go back to a presentation we did like a month ago about the leaky gut. Was anyone here for the leaky gut one? Yeah. So I was sitting there this morning and I was like, how do I explain this better? And so you guys remember when I talked about the leaky gut, right? So you have all these little hairs on the inside of your gut lining, okay? And what I was saying that day was that you have bad bacteria and you have good bacteria, okay? And so if you eat a lot of vegetables and you eat meat and you eat just really normal, healthy food, the good bacteria, they propagate, they grow, they get more of them, and they're chomping down on all those greens. But if you love them nachos and you're eating Snickers bars, Coca-Cola, I don't need that water, I'll just drink a Diet Coke. What? 0 calories, right? If you keep doing all that stuff, well, these guys start to turn into bad bacteria, right? And the good bacteria starts to die off. So what happens when the good bacteria starts to die? Well, they need to eat. And they're not interested in Snickers. They're not interested in Pepsi. So what do they start to do? They start to eat the mucus of your gut lining because that's organic material. And they start to eat all of that. So the thing that was supposed to protect you is now making holes in your gut lining where stuff is coming out and creating, in the modern days, a fatty liver. So why am I talking about this? Because it's the same thing with our minds. It's the same thing with our minds. If you put good things into your mind, you will propagate and grow the potential for good thoughts, good behavior, good feelings, more understanding, more personal wisdom. But if you're buying into and believing the bad things that are going on, your feelings, there's a book called That Feelings Are the Secret. I highly suggest it for people. You are putting bad things in your mind. You are growing and you're growing the bad and therefore deteriorating your ability to be resilient because you're buying into the negative, right? Another great book on this topic would be Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was in the concentration camps during World War II. And he wrote the book, I read it quite a while ago, but they asked him, how did you survive this horror? And he said, every day they brought us soup, and the soup had chunks of rotten fish in it. And there would be people taking other people's soups. There would be people on the ground rotting and dying. And he said, every day I went to go get my soup, and I looked in the bowl, and I found the beauty in it. He said, I looked in the bowl, and I found the beauty in it. He said, I knew it was wrong what they were doing to us. I knew this is evil. I knew I deserved better. I knew this was painful. My body was deteriorating, but I found the beauty because I believed that I could survive this, right? And that's how he survived. And I thought that was, very interesting, right? And so it's not to say that you have to suppress, right? Viktor Frankl wasn't suppressing his time in the concentration camp. He was embracing, like, hey, I'm here. I'm deteriorating. They're giving me soup with fish in it, rotten fish. But I'm choosing to find the good so I can survive tomorrow and be productive. And he became one of the world's most famous psychologists. And so why do I say all this? Because being calm doesn't mean you're peaceful. You need to find peace, okay? So projecting calm doesn't mean you're at peace with yourself. And that's what I thought was interesting with Victor was, Victor probably was not very calm. He was probably very angry. And if he could have attacked those people that were holding him hostage and he would have killed them. And so, but he created peace within himself to survive, right? So, one of the misnomers we have is, I love meditation, I love yoga, I love all that stuff that people do. It's great. I think it's all wonderful. But what I like to call real peace is, can you be peaceful in stressful situations? Right? So if someone shows up to the yoga place and says, pulls the fire alarm, are people going to keep doing their yoga? Or are they going to say, oh my God, I got to get out of here, Right? Or if someone's talking in the library, is someone going to keep reading their book and say, hey, D, shut up over there, right? You can create your own peace, right? You can be that person that's creating it in the midst of challenge. And that's something that I find very attractive in the people that we study, right? So let's go into some... Oh, does anyone have any thoughts on the stuff I just talked about or anything to say? Go.
And I just take this for myself. And I've said this to 2 people in my office. They're like, oh, I'm so stressed and this and that. And I said, if you don't stop, if you don't listen to your body, it's going to just make you stop for you. And you won't even realize it. Right. I worked at a law office. It was very, very stressful. And went to my doctor. And You know, now it's the push the pill. Here, take an anxiety pill. So now I'm still on it. And what I should have done is say, you know, okay, what am I doing to deregulate this? So I would go in the bathroom and, okay, just clear my mind. But another thing, I worked at another office that was very stressful. And I was like, God, I can't sleep. I must have slept wrong. And then, like, I couldn't even go like this anymore. I was like, man, I went to the doctor and they're like, well, you're going to need physical therapy. I'm like, physical therapy? I'm not that old. And it's just, they said, my body, just when you hold all that stress. So now, I couldn't even, lift anymore. So, and I say from experience, if you don't deal with, if you push it down, and I did this for years, it's fine. You keep pushing down your emotions or pushing down that you're mad, your boss ticks you off or somebody. If you don't deal with it, some people are just like, oh, it's fine, whatever, to blow it off. I can't. I can take that internally.
Right.
And if you don't stop and take care of yourself, or like my boss that hired me, she's like, oh, I'm trying to retire, I'm trying to slow down. What are you still doing here at 4 o'clock? You're supposed to be gone an hour ago.
Right.
You have to look at yourself and say, you know what, I have to take a day off, or I have to do this, or I'm going to go for a walk. Whatever works for you and your body, because like you said, they just like, you're breaking down your body, you don't even know it.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate your comment. It's, if I could distill it into word, proactive. Being proactive, right? So like, well, let's take two people, your great example of the taking medication, right? So someone might go to the doctor, say, I need medication, I'm stressed. And so they give them the medication and they take the medication and it takes a month for it to kick in. And they're like, I'm still stressed out. Maybe I'm way more tired. I'm kind of like, how do you say, when they give the animal the medicine to kind of calm down or whatever, you're like that, but the stress is still there, right? So in a sense, that person may have been looking to suppress the stress by taking medication. But the same person takes the pill and they're like, I'm going to add this to a new routine. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to change some of my habits. I'm going to read some literature on this topic. And I need this medication to help cut the edge because I'm really edgy right now. And so the same medication that was maybe suppressing this person and making them worse off is actually helping this person get through a really tough time. And so it becomes a matter of perception, right? It becomes a matter of perception. But really what you want to do is be proactive. So let's go into some simple practices for daily calm. I'd like you guys to just realize that, this is a marathon and not a sprint, right? So we want to pause before reacting. We want to be mindful. Mindfulness is a really important thing. Let's say you have an issue going on. You want to take a moment to notice what is happening in your body before you respond to the issue. So there's times, like I know for me, man, so I'll get hot. My chest will get hot. My belly will start swelling up. I'm like a creepy dog that's like just, getting all, I got like somatic responses, And when I was young, I realized, this is why. I started tying it into my roots, my experiences, etc. And so I realized, hey, I need to, when I'm getting angry, it might not even be the issue that I'm angry about. It's like I'm actually mad that my stomach's swelling. I'm mad because my heart's beating faster. It might not even be the issue. I'm reacting in a fight or flight state. And I need to address that before I even deal with the problem. Coworker said something, this, that, whatever it might be. So you want to take a moment to really address what's going on inside of you and to really understand what it is and to deal with your physical potential reactions to that. You see it with animals. Forgive me for being a goofball, but it's just the truth. You watch animals fight. Has anyone ever seen like National Geographic? I mean, their body changes. Their hair stands up, they get big and swollen, they start, for lack of a better term, defecating all over the place. Because they are in that fight or flight mode, like the body's like, discharge, open up the stomach, push the hair up. And we're no different. We do it in our own ways as humans, but we have that. So we need to address that, because have you ever seen a situation where someone, maybe a TV show, someone comes in and they're just automatically overreacting, right? That person hasn't chewed their food. That person just swallowed the steak. They're choking on it, and now they're screaming at you, right? And so that's why, I bring up those examples. So you want to pause before reacting, and then you want to name the feeling. You want to quietly identify the emotion. So you want to understand what's actually going on. I feel anxious? Or is it I feel overwhelmed? Maybe I feel frustrated. Naming the emotion can reduce the intensity. So we're slowing it down, right? We're chewing it. We're allowing it to digest. Because particularly, most of us when we're dealing with issues, it's with something else. It might be within us, but it also might be with a person or an institution or what have you. And, I know for me, I always say the joke that, like the Hair Club for Men commercial, I'm not here just, selling this stuff. I use it too, the last couple of weeks, I had some opportunities to be very uncalm. And so I was like, thank you, God, for letting me do a presentation on calm, because I need to be calmer. I need to be better. And so as I was writing this up, I was selfishly like, this is about me. I'll share this with him, but this is for me to get better. And so why? So we need to identify the emotion. We need to be better. We need to name emotions so they can reduce their intensity. And then I want you to become aware of your breathing. If you're breathing through your mouth like an animal that just got into a fight, watch a great cat fight video online, man. Like, people are putting cameras on cats. The cat's running outside chasing another cat. And then at the end, the cat's like, that cat is not eating kibble. Like, that cat just got into a fight. And it's angry. And it's breathing through its mouth. And it's tired from exhausting itself. So your breathing will relate to your behavior. And so if you're stressed out, if you're angry, if you're whatever, you need to attach to your breathing. We did a presentation on breathing a month and a half ago. You want to breathe through your nose. You want to breathe in a way where you can hold your hand up here in your diaphragm and you can't even feel your diaphragm moving. If you're breathing so much that it's like going up and down, you're kind of overdoing it. You want to breathe through your nose because there's literally, I can't remember the name of it, but stuff in your nose that goes down and calms your heart. I'll give you some proof. Go home if you have a blood pressure monitor. Breathe out of your mouth for 10 minutes. Check your blood pressure. Then breathe out of your nose for 10 minutes. It'll be different. One will be higher than the other. So if you raise your blood pressure 10, 15 points and something stressful happens on top of that, could you imagine where your mind might go, right? So these are really important things to understand. Create small moments of quiet. Even a few minutes without noise, screens, or stimulation can help reset the mind and the body. So I said our phones, can be our best buddy. We keep them in our pockets. We keep them in our purse. They're really secondary to ourselves. Our phones are our next best friend, if you think about it. Some people spend more time with their phones than with their soulmate. And so we have to be aware of how that entity, that we call it a device or technology, but it's really an entity. Why do they call TVs television? Because it's telling you a vision. Why is it on a broadcast? Because it's broadly casting a net over the world to get your attention, right? Why is it on a channel? Because it's channeling an idea to you. You guys ever thought about stuff like that? This stuff has that power on you. You can pick up your phone and become really happy and laugh. You could be really angry when you get on Facebook and they're like, guess what the political news is right now?
And then your emotions can change back and forth rapidly within 20 minutes just from scrolling.
Exactly. You might send something to a friend and they don't respond. Oh, that's not a real friend, right? In the old days, you would send a letter, and my grandparents, I used to see them every weekend. They moved to Portugal. I talked to them once every 4 years. This was in the 90s. We didn't have the tech. They sure as heck didn't have the tech, and you cope with it. I still love you. We're still close. We just don't talk as much. And so we need to be understanding of it. Even a few minutes without noise, screens, or stimulation can help reset the mind and the body. So use this thing as a tool and not a crutch. It's a tool. So use it for good. Use it for positive, right? So here's the part where I talk about how a bathroom can save your relationships. Sometimes in life we're stuck in messed up situations. I used to tell, even when I worked in domestic violence and stuff, I used to say the bathroom is a sacred place. And people laugh because we all know what goes on in the bathroom. But it's true. Why is the bathroom sacred? Well, because usually you don't have two people in there at a time, typically.
And you have a lock on the door.
Exactly. And so when you go in there, you don't have to explain. Like, every time I leave the bathroom, nobody's like, what were you doing in there? Why was the door locked? No, it's like you were in the bathroom, right? If you go lock the door in the other room of the house, someone might say, hey, why are you locking the door? And what are you up to? Blah, 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 blah. So I've always told people when I worked in the bathroom is a safe room. It really is in a lot of ways.
Even at school, it used to be the escape.
Yeah.
You go to the bathroom to take a break. You're like, and then you go back and then you're fine.
Perfect example. It's going in the stall, right? So, sometimes ladies invite each other, hey, let's go into the bathroom. And they're talking about their day. They're talking about, their life. So why do I bring this up? Because most of us, we're in a home, we're in an environment. Even here, for example, there's a bathroom. Most edifices have bathrooms. Why is it important? Because you might be in a situation where someone comes up to you in the moment. And you're like, yeah, D, but I have kids that have attitude problems, or my husband's difficult, or my wife is dramatic, or whatever. And I say, you're right. You feel that way. Maybe you're right. So how can we deal with it? How can we work with that? And so your reaction might be, or not you, but a person's reaction might be, well, I just let them have it. I tell them how it is because they went in my face and I gave it right back. But I would say, is that the best for you and for your life and for the people around you, right? How can we lead by example? How can we be proactive? So one choice that I do, that I learned in my life that kind of saved me a few times, is I'll just be like, someone will do something really wild and I'll be like, well, I'm going to head to the bathroom. Give me 5 minutes. And I'll go in the bathroom. What do I do in the bathroom? Well, I'm not using it for its orthodox purposes, I can tell you that. What I'm doing in there is I am pausing before reacting to the person. So I went to the bathroom, sitting in there. I'm angry as heck. Oh, so-and-so said that. I'm a man. Men are supposed to react to these things. Nope. I'm pausing, thinking about it, taking a moment to notice. I'm naming the feeling. I'm angry right now. So-and-so disrespected me. I feel really disrespected. And that person's sitting in the living room right now. But they're also important to me. That's also someone I love. And our relationship matters, and how I react to this is going to set the tone potentially for the rest of the day or maybe even the rest of the week, right? So I say, I'm feeling angry. I name the emotion. And then I slow to an exhale. I sit there for as long as it takes, family. I sit there and I'm breathing, relaxing. Okay, this was a form of really nasty intimacy. This person's so close to me that they felt comfortable using those words or acting this way. But I'm going to calm myself down. Even though I disagree with it, I need to be calm. And in doing that, I'm creating a moment of quiet. So I'm not in the bathroom watching like videos. I'm not in there, distracting myself from my feelings. I'm in there reflecting on it. And you can do this in a couple of minutes, right? You can go in there and do this. And let me tell you, take as long as you need. After 24 hours, they're probably going to call the ambulance if you don't answer. But take as long as you need, right? And that's why I say that, it's a joke, but it's really not a joke. Because, these things are really important. Why? Because things can escalate, right? This is a form of de-escalation. You want to come out of whatever it is. You could be the bathroom, it could be your bedroom, it could be taking a walk around the park. You want to come back with a lower energy level and more foundationally connected to the root of the issue. Maybe even curious. Hey, I noticed you said that. I'm ready to hear you out and talk. I was a little frustrated, but I'm feeling good now. And then you can have a conversation, right? And it's like anything in laundry. Sometimes you have to rinse and repeat. Sometimes you have that stain on your shirt. You don't get the stain out the first try. It takes 5 tries, right? And then you might even be intimate and tell the person, hey, I need a break because this keeps getting this. So give me an hour, give me a few hours. I'm going to go. You're not going to go out and drink a bunch of alcohol, right? You're going to go out and do the thing all over again. Do you have a point you wanted to say?
You sure that, or you told me one time, choose people, you said that this person always communicate loud and, we all know somebody like this, either boss or somebody, and they're expecting you to either come along and start yelling back or communicate. And you said after a while, you're like, well, I'm not going to do that. So you were calm, you listened to the person, right. And after a while, it actually changed the way they talk to you. Yeah. And I was like, wow,
Oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you can,
Yeah,
it's amazing you can do that.
Remember, two people fight. Oh, go ahead, Rowena. You had something?
I was just going to point out that's why they say you do your best thinking on the toilet.
Right. Or even in the shower, right. Take a cold shower, whatever. So remember, I talked about the victim hero perp, right? And who was here 2 weeks ago? Okay, do you guys remember when we talked about all the universes? And we talked about the straight line, the square, the cube, right? Okay, so why did we said that? Because everyone's living in a different universe. So you might go to the bathroom, take a break, because you feel like the victim, and that person's the perp. And the hero might be your behavior and trying to fix it. But that person might feel by the victim for even bringing it up in the first place, and they think you're the perp, right? And the hero is you staying there to listen and deal with whatever they feel. And so what I tell you guys is we got to understand that it's not an exact science, okay? You could be the best at regulating yourself, and if you're with an unstable person or in an unstable situation, these things can go off the rails. People always say, why did that psychologist get divorced? You know, why did this happen? Why did Because you cannot control other people. Flat out, you could be the best, you could be the Gandhi of the world, and someone can just come and smash up your situation. And so there's a time, as I've said many times, there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place to listen to somebody. There's a time and a place to take a break. There's a time and a place, I just was talking to someone recently, there's a time and a place to break up with people. There's a time and a place to disassociate from people. And so these are all things that we have to do. But, you know, for the sake, in 2 weeks, come to that one. Because we'll be talking about relationships in the modern world. So we'll be talking about the stuff that'll be a great presentation. June 6th, 9 o'clock. Be a great presentation for that topic. So you need to stay connected. So what happens generally when we're going through stress? We start to disconnect from the world, our close friends, etc. Why am I talking about taking breaks? Why am I talking about self-regulating? Why am I talking about communication? Because it's a healthier alternative than cutting off every relationship every time something bad happens, right? Have we ever been in a situation in life where we meet someone and they're like, good vibes only. If this person's this, they're out of my life. It's not a winning strategy. You must be really good at picking out super healthy, perfect people, because that's how you build your tribe. Most of your tribe is going to have flaws. Most of your tribe is going to have problems. That's why I've said in the past, think of your friends, think of people you're around as a toolbox, right? I don't have the same conversations with Dustin as I have with Sherman, but I don't see them. They're both humans, and I value them. I don't say, oh, Dustin, you need to be like Sherman, or Sherman, you need to be like Dustin. Dustin's his own tool. I'm sorry, I called you a tool. Sherman's his own, right? And the only way I can call you a tool in a healthy way. And so, and we have to understand these. It's very important, and it makes us better, right? But with that, it doesn't mean that everything's guaranteed. So you want to stay connected to healthy environments, to healthy people. Supportive relationships help regulate stress and build your resilience. The way I like to say this is to know your personnel. Know your personnel. I'm a big sports fan. Not everybody could be the quarterback. You can't, on a football team, you have 53 players. You can't have 53 quarterbacks, right? On a baseball team, you have 25 players. You can't have 25 pitchers. You got to have a first baseman, a second baseman, third. You got to have people that hit home runs, people that can steal bases. It's the same thing in your life. People get married and they say, you're my soulmate. Now you have to be everything. You are my confidant. You are financial equality, this, so on and so forth. That's not realistic, right? We want to stay in the realm of realism, and we want to honor the great things about the people we love while also working together on the things that can improve, right? And that's how we stay connected. Not only do we want a healthy environments, we need to create healthy environments for people that want to be around us as well, right? So how do we do that? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes standing up for ourselves. We're going to make mistakes working on ourselves. We're going to make mistakes dealing with other people. Well, what's important? You need to practice self-compassion. You need to be compassionate to yourself first. I see so much in society. I deal with it myself. I'm super compassionate to everybody else, but when I make a mistake, I'm right? So mad. Why? Because our ego, the status that we want to achieve in life, that bothers us. I think that's an issue among men. I think that's fair to say, right? We want to reach a certain status, which means we have a certain ego. So if we mess up at work or something, or if we mess up with our friends, it hurts us even more. We're not as compassionate. We beat ourselves up. But if our buddy did that, generally we're more understanding. Hey, man, you messed up. You broke something at the job. Hey, man, you're gonna learn from it. You're going to be all right. The boss might not think that, but you try to encourage people. We need to be that way with ourselves as we are to others. So practice self-compassion. Before anything, seek to regulate yourself first. Think of yourself as like a flowing engine, right? You don't want to have clogs. You don't want to have things breaking down. You want to regulate the machine that is your emotions, okay? And so ask yourself, what would I say to someone else I care about at this moment? And then offer some of that same kindness to yourself, right? So, someone in my job, you could be a really good, encouraging person, but you can also harm yourself if you're not that way that you are to others as you are to yourselves, right? And so people ask me all the time, like if I'm going through something, they're like, someone asked me the other day, how you doing? I said, oh, it's crappy. And they said, oh, are you mad at yourself? No, I love myself. I love myself. I have to. Sherman told you, love yourself like your life depends on it, because it does. It does depend on it. But you can also be real. I don't have to be like, oh, everything's amazing, doing great, It's like, no, I don't feel good. So I'm honest about it. So have a compassionate perspective.
A good way to build compassion is learning about your morals, and then from there setting boundaries.
Right. I really like that point. And also like you're finding out about other people's, right? Mm-hmm. So like the good example, I'm talking about food, right? So someone might be into, they eat steak. And someone's a vegetarian or a vegan. And that can become super different. But if we can sit at the same table and have a conversation about why we do what we do, we might not agree, but we can understand, right? So different cultures have different perspectives as well. And here in America, we're more of a melting pot. So that's a really great point. So a compassionate perspective. Instead of asking, what is wrong with me or this person, consider asking, what happened to me or this person? What happened, right? So the person comes in, they're the victim of something. So instead of saying, what is wrong with them? Because sometimes we'll say that if they say, well, I'm the victim of you. Well, what's wrong with you? Because I'm not no perp, right? Instead of saying what's wrong with them, it's like, hey, what happened? Why are you coming to me with this? What happened? I'm curious. Let's have a discourse. Share how you feel. The shift encourages understanding rather than shame. So if someone comes to me and says, D, you really upset me. And I say, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you upset? Because I'm great. I'm in a good place right now. I'm shaming them trying to share something intimately with me rather than understanding it. Whereas I say, oh, well, what's wrong? What happened? Okay, so this shift encourages understanding rather than shame. Compassion does not erase hardship, but it can create space for healing, growth, and healthier responses over time. So remember that your compassion, if you're being compassionate towards someone, it's not like it's an eraser that all of a sudden there's, their problem is done. Hey, I'm being nice to you. Get over it. I'm being nice. I'm listening to you. Get over maybe the problem is valid even if you are being nice, right? So your niceness doesn't get to erase someone's feelings or vice versa. The greatest example, I have a good memory, man. The greatest example of this, you guys remember the show Full House? Mm-hmm. I love that show. And little Michelle came in. It was Politeness Week. She went to her sister Stephanie and she goes, Stephanie, may I have a chocolate chip cookie? And Stephanie said, no, you may not. And then she was being polite back to Michelle. And Michelle was all confused, right? At that time, I think she's like a 5-year-old kid. And then she goes, no, may I asked nicely, may I have a cookie? And Stephanie responded, well, I'm responding nicely. No, you may not. And then Michelle goes like this, and she goes, you know what? Politeness Week is over. And she grabs the cookie and runs out, right? Why? Because she was attached to the result of getting what she wanted out of the situation, and politeness was the tool to get it, okay? We cannot do that to ourselves or to others, or we would prefer not to have that done to us. It's one of the reasons I talked about covert deregulation, is because we might be telling someone our problems because we secretly hope they're going to fix them, right? And so if we get in the habit of doing that, then we're not practicing our own personal regulation, right? And so we don't want to create those relationships, and then we also don't want to have those relationships as well. I'm not saying you can't be supportive. I'm not saying you can't tell people. You should. If you have an intimate, connective relationship, you should. Hey, I'm going through stuff, or hey, I need some support. But the problem is when it becomes habitual, and when it becomes the go-to every time, and we're doing the whole victim, perp, hero thing. And so, let's see here. So compassion does not erase hardship, but it can create space for healing, growth, and healthier responses over time. Remember that understanding is not agreement. So here's a thought. Calm is not something people either have or do not have. Okay, it's a place you can go and come out of. So there's no such thing as a calm person. Give me 10 minutes with a calm person and I can make them uncalm very fast, you know? And the same thing with a person who's irritable. You can put someone in that's very irritable in an amazing situation, and all of a sudden they're super zen. You guys ever seen the movie Trading Places from the 80s? Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy? It's a movie about, they took Dan Aykroyd, he's a white guy, he works in the stock market, he's got an amazing family, all this stuff. And they set up a situation where he lost his job. And then they took a homeless guy off the street, Eddie Murphy, and they gave him all the stuff Dan Aykroyd had. And all of a sudden, Eddie Murphy's coming up with great ideas. He's making millions of dollars. He's living a great life. And Dan Aykroyd's stealing from people. He's, doing nefarious things. And so one thing that I always try to do when I see someone is to understand what happened as opposed to what's wrong with them, right? We want to understand, we see people, we're on this side of town, there's people that are suffering. When I see that person, I say, what happened? You're suffering. I care about that, societally speaking. And I'll say, what's wrong with you, right? What's up? And so our issues are micro within that. We want to treat ourselves that way. We want to treat the people around us that way. So remember, calm is not something people either have or do not have. You might look at D and say, he's really calm. You might take my plate of nachos away and we have a problem, right? Okay. It is a skill that can be strengthened. Remember that your calm is a skill. You don't have to label yourself and say, I'm not a calm person. No, you just, maybe I don't practice calm enough. Maybe I'm not practicing mindfulness. Maybe I can learn more about mindfulness and calm and meditation and certain behaviors. I highly encourage you guys to check out books and read on the topic. It's amazing what you can learn. So remember, it's a skill, not just for yourself, but for others, right? You might run into someone that's super dysregulated, their behavior. You're like, oh, you're just not practicing your calm skill. Oh, this is how you see intimacy. You see intimacy by yelling. Because you don't yell at everybody else. You just yell at me, or you just yell at the kids. Oh, this is your idea of being connective. Well, let's work on that, because that ain't working for me. And that ain't working for you. And so this is how we can be the calm one in the messed up situations, right? Because they happen. I know it's not easier said than done, right, guys? But it helps. So it's a skill that can be strengthened. Awareness. You want to be aware, okay? And what I ask you guys is to focus on what is real and what is essential. Essential, okay? When you're dealing with people, you don't want to fight over a bunch of little things. But you definitely want to have a conversation about the real things. So it's like, why are we arguing over dishes? This has nothing to do with dishes. This is about respect. So why are we wasting our time arguing over dishes? Let the dishes go. Sit on the couch, hold each other's hands, and talk about respect. Right? We talk to our kids. You didn't clean up the fridge. It's not about the fridge. It's about that you didn't respect me enough to listen and to do the thing I asked you to do, or to live up to the agreement you made when you signed up your chore sheet or whatever. And so we need to cut the baloney and go to the essential. What is real? What is essential? Because we can confuse people into thinking that they're just not good enough, especially young people. I used to work in a teen shelter. Kids would stop sweeping their rooms because they didn't feel confident because they were constantly being criticized. And I'd go in there and talk to them, and they're like, I just can't do it. People keep, I said, oh, you're great, but you need encouragement. I always like to say, you cannot shame people to greatness. You cannot shame people to be better. You grow people like you would grow a plant. You nurture it, you cultivate it, you give it nourishment and food and water, right? It's the same with your loved ones. It's the same with yourselves, right? So focus on what is real and essential in your relationship. And that's that's a room of intimacy in the home that is your life. Self-compassion. Your truth can be problematic, okay? So I want you to be compassionate towards yourselves. I want us all to be compassionate towards ourselves. But realize that sometimes your truth can be problematic. You can walk into a room and you can know the truth. Hey, this place is corrupt. This place is corrupt. I work for this institution and they do bad things. And it's like, yeah, you're right. But it's problematic. You know what I'm saying? So you need to have self-compassion to understand that sometimes there are things that we don't have control over. Other people's behavior, institutions, nations, politics, etc. How do I regulate myself within the realm of problems happening? Because once you solve one problem, guess what's going to happen? A bunch of other problems are going to show up, right? I just saved the whales. Now the koalas are going to get in trouble. I just saved the koalas. Now the lizards are in trouble. I just saved the boa constrictors, but now they're eating the deer. You see what I'm saying? Like, you should have a purpose in life. You should work to do good things, but don't let it take away your peace. And remember to be self-compassionate to the things that are going on, not only with yourself, but with others. Healthy habits. What are we eating? Are you at the party eating nachos? Or are you out there, eating stuff that makes you feel good so you have the energy to do stuff? Do you have a workout routine? Are you getting enough hydration? This isn't just about your mind. This is about your mind-body connection. You are connecting your body and your mind, right? So if your body is dysregulated, your mind will be dysregulated. If you have diabetes from a diet, if you have high blood pressure, these are very common issues that people are dealing with in society right now: high blood pressure, diabetes, degenerative disorders. This will affect the peace of mind that you have within you. So you need supportive connection. And so what would I say about a supportive connection, right? We talked about being individualistic, being able to regulate yourself, but I want you to have support too. Well, realize that you teach people how to treat you. Nobody just gets, I don't have a book of all of you guys, what you guys want, right? Like if we're all hanging out, it's like, or I'm here talking, like you guys don't have the book of D. And it's like, oh, D doesn't like peanut butter and chocolate. So if you guys bring me a Reese's Pieces and I just go, get this out of here, you should have known better. That's not fair. That's not fair. You teach people how to treat you, and you're a gentle teacher. Oh, thank you for offering me the Reese's, but you know what? I'm not a fan of peanut butter and chocolate, but that was so thoughtful of you to bring that. Thank you so much. And that person might remember now, you don't like peanut butter and chocolate, right? It's the same way with our partners, the same way with our kiddos. We want to cultivate an environment where we're teaching people how to treat us, but we're also a good learner. Am I humble enough to let you guys teach me how to treat you, right? Some of our presentations, I've asked you guys, hey, do you guys like this? Do you guys like that? What have you? I want to learn. I want to hear how you feel and how you think about things. So repeated practice. It's like exercise. So rinse and repeat, right? So you can't go to like the Michelle story and say, well, you didn't give me the cookie, so politeness week is over. You got to keep practicing with your partners, right? I'm a big believer in resiliency in relationships. You don't have to force things to work, but you work on things getting better. And that, instead of, this idea of like, well, we just dump everything. Dump people. It's almost like an ejection button. It's kind of spooky if you think about it. You're talking to someone and they're in a rough place and they're like, yeah, man, I just hit the ejection button. It's like, well, what happened to that person? I don't know. They're gone. They're out of my life, And sometimes, like I said, there's a time and a place for everything, right? There are times when you have to do that, but not too often. We don't want to do that all the time, right? Because then we're just the ejector. We're like a circus person just shooting people up into the air. So, repeat your practice, everything we talked about, everything that's in the handout. Realize that it's going to take time. And as good as you get, you can also regress. And then from there, you get good again, right? So remember, what we do not metabolize, we are at risk of metastasizing, right? If you're not metabolizing your stress, if you're not working through traumatic events, if you're not working through your problems, those things can metastasize within you and become a greater, deeper problem that can harm you and harm others, right? So always focus on when it's stress and everything, metabolize it. Our responses make all the differences to the quality of our lives. So remember that. It's not necessarily what people are saying or how they act. It's how are we responding, right? Pay attention to how you respond to things. So that's very important. And so it's not to say that people can't do bad or there are harmful situations, but how we respond can really affect our calm and our resiliency. So we want to be go to the bathroom, go do something to think of that response and be genuine, be real, but be respectful as well, right? In a changing world, resilience grows when we learn to respond to ourselves with steadiness instead of fear. I fear nobody's reaction. I have given up on fearing what people think about who I am or what I say. And it's a very powerful thing, but it also comes with responsibility. Just because I don't fear people, I still need to be a respectful person, So if I walk around saying, I don't fear nobody, so I get to cuss because I like to cuss, I'm breaking the social contract I have with society to have a healthy environment for the youth and the people around me, right? And so you definitely don't want to live with fear of what everyone else is thinking or acting, but you want to create a constitution within yourself as healthy behavior as well, right? And so the last thing I ask you guys to do before we finish up here is I'd like to ask you guys to close your eyes. If you can kind of join me here and close your eyes. And listen to the wonderful hand fan. Let the hand fan guide you to calmness. And so I want you to ask yourself, what helps me feel grounded? Think of one thing that helps you feel grounded. And for a moment, think of that thing. What helps me feel grounded? Now that you have that one thing, I want you to think, when do I notice stress most in my body? When do I notice stress most in my body? And then I want you to ask yourself, what is one small calming habit I can practice daily? What is one small calming habit I can practice daily? Something that works for you. And the last thing is, who truly, unequivocally helps me feel safe, supported, and understood? Who truly, unequivocally helps me feel safe, supported, and understood? All right, guys. How did that feel? Calming, right on. Hey, right on point. So, one of the reasons we do this, we did this 2 weeks ago as well, is to say that you can create a moment of calm. In the tornado of the bathroom hand dryers, you were able to find a space to reflect and calm, right? And not only did you do that, you did that amongst people. You did that amongst people that some of us might be strangers to one another that are becoming friends. And so that should give you confidence in yourself. Love yourself for coming here today. Love yourself for getting up and being a part of something bigger than yourself. This wouldn't matter at all if none of you were here. You made this happen. And anything that will come from these talks is because of you. So in that regard, you are a part of something bigger that you get to do not only for your community, but for yourself, and that you get to go out and share, right? And so to speak on behalf of the library, thank you so much for being here. There are a lot of books here that are on the topic, and if you don't have a library card, I highly encourage you guys to get one because it's a great environment for learning and to get some books. Sherman, the staff here can help you with any questions you might have because they have a lot of stuff going on. And I highly invite you to come back in 2 weeks because we're going to rock it again in 2 weeks. Do you guys have any thoughts or things you want to share?
I do. So earlier, for the supportive connection, I thought it would be important to bring up